job I got was I was a janitor in the recording studio where John recorded. I almost got fired one time because a couple of songwriters crashed the session, and they were trying to pitch him a gospel album, and for some reason the woman who was the secretary to the producer.
When you talk about legends in country music, Kris Kristofferson and Johnny Cash will always be mentioned in the same breath. Both men carried with them a kind of raw, unpolished truth that spoke directly to working class souls, soldiers, dreamers, and outlaws alike. But the way their paths crossed is one of those stories that feels almost too outrageous to be real. It's part Southern tall tale, part rock and roll folklore, and part sheer desperation from a songwriter who refused to be ignored. And like all the best stories in music history, it's been retold so many times it's taken on a life of its own. Kris Kristofferson wasn't supposed to end up in the honky-tonks of Nashville. Born in Brownsville, Texas, raised in a military household, and educated at Pomona College before becoming a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, his resume looked more like that of a future diplomat or professor than a man destined to write about heartache and highways. He excelled in literature, athletics, and academics, and his father, a high-ranking officer, expected him to follow a disciplined military path. Kris did, at least for a while. He went through Ranger School, became a captain, and even taught English at West Point. But underneath all that polish, all that discipline, was a restless soul who wanted something more. Music kept tugging at him, whispering in those quiet hours when he was supposed to be grading papers or saluting superiors. He started writing songs, simple at first, then sharper, more lyrical, more profound. He began sneaking down to Nashville whenever he could, chasing a dream his family didn't understand. When he finally resigned his commission and left the army, it caused a rift so deep that his parents disowned him. They couldn't understand why a man with such a promising career would throw it away to play bars and mop floors in a recording studio, but Kris knew he had to bet on himself. Life in Nashville wasn't glamorous. He took whatever jobs he could: bartending, construction, sweeping up at Columbia Records. Sometimes he flew helicopters for extra money, shuttling oil workers out to rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. He lived cheap, spent weekends pitching songs, and hoped that one of the stars who walked into Columbia might take a chance on one of his tunes. A few did: Roger Miller, Jerry Lee Lewis. But the breaks were small, not enough to put him on the map. He needed someone big, someone like Johnny Cash. Through June Carter, Kristofferson had tried to slip a few demos Cash's way. June promised to pass them along, but in the chaos of Cash's life, tours, recording, his own demons, the tapes disappeared into a pile. Cash never heard them. To Kris, it felt like his chance had slipped away.
Blamed me for letting him in there and tried to get me fired. And so the next night, my boss came down and said, I don't think you should go to John's session tonight. And which was heartbreaking for me because I lived for those recording sessions. But I understood, and I hid down in the vault of the recording studio and was erasing tapes down there, doing some kind of busy work, and John appeared down there in the basement. He said, I understand you're not coming to the session. I said, no, I got a lot of work to do down here. I can't. He said, well, I just wanted to tell you I'm not going to record until you come up there. So I had to go up and sit on the floor, and here I was the janitor, right?
But he wasn't the kind of man to give up. This is where the story becomes legend. Frustrated with being ignored, Kristofferson hatched a plan that was equal parts reckless and brilliant. He'd use one of the few advantages his military life had given him: the ability to fly a helicopter. Depending on who you ask, he either borrowed one from his weekend National Guard duties or used one from his oil rig job. What's certain is that one sunny Nashville day, Kris Kristofferson piloted a chopper straight onto Johnny Cash's front lawn. Imagine the scene: the whir of blades shaking the Tennessee air, the man in black's quiet property suddenly roaring with military precision. Kristofferson sets down, kicks open the door, and, if you believe Cash's version, steps out with a demo tape in one hand and a cold beer in the other. It's an entrance that could have been written in one of his own songs, halfway between outlaw audacity and desperate poetry. Now, Kris always denied the beer part. He swore up and down there was no way he could fly a helicopter holding one, and in truth, Johnny Cash wasn't even home when it happened. But like all the greatest country stories, the truth and the myth eventually blurred into one. What mattered was the gesture. Here was a young songwriter so desperate to be heard that he literally dropped his music from the sky.
And I'm sitting on the floor, and this woman who tried to get me fired was watching me the whole session. It was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my life. But I thought it was the measure of the man. He's always stood up for the underdog.
Thank you.
And that's something I've tried to live up to. He's been a good example.
The demo he left behind included Sunday Morning Comin' Down, a song so aching and vivid it could only have come from a man who'd lived on the fringes, seen too much, and still found beauty in the broken pieces. Cash finally listened, and something in it struck him. Maybe he saw a reflection of himself, another restless spirit trying to wrestle pain into poetry. Whatever it was, Cash took the song, recorded it, and turned it into a #1 hit. It went on to win the Country Music Association's Song of the Year.
Change.
Song of the Year for 1970, Sunday Morning Comin' Down.
Catapulting Kristofferson from janitor and oil rig pilot to one of the most in-demand songwriters in Nashville. That helicopter stunt didn't just earn him Cash's respect, it forged a bond that would last decades. Kristofferson always credited Johnny with giving him his start, and years later when they stood side by side in the supergroup The Highwaymen with Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings, you could see the proof of that bond. They weren't just bandmates, they were brothers who'd walked through fire, addiction, rejection, and triumph together. The tale of Kris Kristofferson landing a helicopter on Johnny Cash's lawn has been retold so many times that it's hard to separate fact from embellishment. Did he really swagger out with a beer? Was Cash even there to witness it? Did the tape land in Johnny's hands immediately, or did it take another round of persistence? In the end, it doesn't matter. The story has all the ingredients of country mythology: grit, rebellion, a touch of recklessness, and the kind of bold gesture that can change a man's life. And that's exactly what it did. Without that moment, maybe Me and Bobby McGee never finds its way to Janis Joplin. Maybe Sunday Morning Comin' Down never echoes through the airwaves. Maybe Kristofferson doesn't become the poet laureate of outlaw country, doesn't star in A Star Is Born, doesn't stand shoulder to shoulder with Cash, Nelson, and Jennings as one of the Highwaymen. But because he trusted his gut and risked a stunt that could have gotten him arrested or worse, his voice was finally heard. When Kristofferson died in September 2024 at the age of 88, tributes poured in from every corner of the music world. Fans remembered the songs, the movies, the gravelly voice that could make even the hardest hearts crack. But again and again, people came back to that story. The helicopter, the tape, the audacity of a man who refused to be ignored. It symbolized everything about Kristofferson. A scholar with calloused hands, a soldier turned poet, a dreamer reckless enough to believe that if he landed on Johnny Cash's lawn, destiny might finally open its door. In truth, it did. That whirring helicopter didn't just touch down on a patch of grass in Tennessee, it landed him squarely in the history of American music.